What you're about to watch is one of the most blistering takedowns we've seen in a congressional hearing all year. Mikie Sherrill doesn't just question Pete Hegseth, she dissects the entire mythology he's built around himself. And the moment she lays out 3 areas of your incompetence, you can literally feel the Fox News polish dissolving in real time. This exchange exposes something much bigger than a single misstep. It reveals what happens when political theatrics collide with the reality of governing. Stay locked in, because this one cuts deep.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Hegseth, Chairman Kane, thank you both for being here today. Mr. Secretary, your testimony over the last several days before Congress, I've heard you speak about all of your supposed accomplishments from your time at the Pentagon. I have to say, your training at Fox News has let you spin months of dangerous dysfunction and incompetence into catchy phrases like restoring the warrior ethos and increasing lethality. But the truth is, it's really been chaos at the Pentagon under your leadership. You've clearly shown you're unable to manage the Department of Defense, but what I'm most concerned about are 3 specific areas: your operational incompetence, your managerial incompetence, and your budgetary incompetence. So let's start with operational. According to news reports, in your first week on the job, you got confused in a National Security Council meeting and thought President Trump wanted you to stop all aid to Ukraine. In a well-functioning administration, you would have asked for clarification before making that seismic policy shift, but instead you ordered vital military aid heading to the front lines turned around, costing the U.S. millions of dollars, and depriving Ukrainian soldiers of equipment they needed to fight Russia. So, Mr. Secretary, can you explain how exactly you misunderstood such a monumental presidential order?
One of many fake news headlines we've dealt with.
So President Trump told you to halt military aid to Ukraine on January 30th?
As is often the case, highly ideological and very ill-informed reporters love to speculate about things they know nothing about in order to spear President Trump and myself.
So it sounds like actually the reporting is correct, because I will say, if it wasn't a mistake, why did aid restart only a few days later?
Again, we would take complete issue with what would some call reporting and others call a hatchet job.
So why did aid start just a couple days later?
I'm saying the reporting is inaccurate, ma'am.
I don't think that's correct. So let's move on to your managerial incompetence. I think we can see why you misunderstood the president, because you're obviously misunderstanding my questions. Less than a month into the job, you fired the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, C.Q. Brown, and the chief of naval operations, Lisa Franchetti, without cause. And to this day, you still have not provided an adequate explanation for removing them. As far as I can tell, you fired C.Q. Brown because he was black and Lisa Franchetti because she is a woman. So nearly 4 months later, we still don't have a new nominee for Chief of Naval Operations. News reports, and you can contest it, but I'd love to hear your answer, say that you haven't nominated someone because qualified admirals keep turning the position down. So tell me, Mr. Secretary, when will Congress receive your nomination for the next chairman of the next chief of naval operations?
Ma'am, with all due respect, I would suggest not believing every headline you read.
With all due respect, I'd like your nomination. When will we see it?
There has not a single admiral or any military official has turned down a position that's been
So when will we see your nominee for the chief of naval operations?
In due time, for all the right reasons.
Again, I think we've seen the managerial incompetence. Okay, let's move on to budgetary incompetence. You missed the deadline to submit a draft defense budget to Congress, which makes it impossible for us to complete our work on the NDAA or appropriations, and makes it more likely you'll receive delays in funding you need for new acquisitions, programs, and other priorities. Additionally, you're blowing money on poorly conceived operations and vanity projects for President Trump. Retrofitting the Qatari jet to serve as Air Force One will cost about $400 million. The parade in D.C. this weekend will cost upwards of $40 million. Your bombing campaign in Yemen cost about $1 billion, and a week later they were having missile strikes in Israel. Your operations in LA will cost tens of millions of dollars, and you claim to be cutting costs at the Pentagon, but all I see are wasted dollars better spent addressing our most pressing threats like China. So, Mr. Secretary, what priorities have you cut funding for to pay for these projects?
Ma'am, I would just say your list left off securing the southern border.
So, Mr. Secretary, what priorities have you cut funding for to pay for these projects?
We make trade-offs every day, and I would imagine what we want to spend on is quite different than what the previous administration did.
Well, I think
we
the
made those changes quickly, and they're reflected in this budget, and we're very proud of them.
I think the American people can see why I'm so concerned about this incompetence. Thank you, and I yield back.
What we just saw was far more than a tense moment between a member of Congress and a cabinet official. This was a window into the consequences of treating government like a television studio, where branding replaces policy, slogans replace strategy, and loyalty replaces competence. Mikie Sherrill comes out swinging, not because she's grandstanding, but because the stakes demand clarity. She strips away the sound bites Hegseth has leaned on: warrior ethos, increasing lethality, all the buzzwords meant to project strength, and instead exposes a record defined by confusion, impulsiveness, and political obedience. Her point lands because it's not theoretical, it's operational, managerial, and budgetary. Those are the things that actually keep the country safe. Her first line of attack, the alleged halting of military aid to Ukraine, is devastating because it underscores a truth about governance. Misunderstandings at this level don't just create headlines, they create real-world consequences. Military convoys don't stop on a dime without ripple effects, and a Secretary of Defense who can't distinguish between presidential intent and his own assumptions becomes a liability. Hegseth tries to wave it off as fake news, but Sherrill traps him immediately. If it wasn't a mistake, why was it reversed just days later? He can't answer it because there isn't an answer that reflects competence. Then she pivots to managerial leadership, or the lack thereof. Removing the chairman of the Joint Chiefs and the chief of naval operations without cause isn't just unusual, it's destabilizing. These aren't symbolic roles, they are the backbone of continuity during transitions. And the fact that Hegseth cannot or will not explain the firings only strengthens her implication. The decisions weren't rooted in performance, they were rooted in politics. Sherrill's framing is bold, suggesting the firings were tied to race and gender, but it hits at a broader pattern we've seen before: the elevation of political loyalty over institutional stability. And then comes the money. Budgetary incompetence is where rhetoric meets reality. Missing the budget deadline isn't a clerical issue, it freezes Congress, delays planning, and puts national defense on hold. Sherrill lays out the price tags of vanity projects and politically motivated operations, not because the dollar amounts are shocking on their own, but because they reveal priorities. Retrofits for a Trump jet, tens of millions for parades, billions for campaigns with questionable strategic value, all while insisting the Pentagon is cutting costs. Hegseth responds by mentioning the southern border, but he doesn't address the core question: what programs were sacrificed to fund these choices? He can't say, because acknowledging the trade-offs would expose the administration's true hierarchy of values. Sherrill's interrogation isn't about a gotcha moment, it's about reminding the public that competence matters, process matters, and leadership isn't something you can manufacture through cable news confidence. It's earned through clarity, discipline, and accountability, the very things missing from Hegseth's responses. And that's the takeaway here. Governance demands something deeper than catchphrases. It demands people who understand that national security is built on the boring, unglamorous work of planning, oversight, and institutional trust. When those foundations erode, chaos fills the vacuum. Today's hearing wasn't just calling out the chaos, it was mapping exactly where it came from. If you want more breakdowns like this, the kind that cut through the noise and actually explain the stakes behind these moments, make sure you like this video, subscribe to Left Lens, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next deep dive.